Hello TBC people and welcome back to another video. And in this week's video, as previously mentioned in my Kai's Fire Dragon EVO short, today's video is a review of Kai's Fire Dragon EVO. And I'll be going through all three stages and it's going to be a really in-depth review. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so starting off with the side builds, we technically get two in this $50 set. And in case you guys are wondering why I'm saying it's $50, that's just the regular retail price for it in Australia. But to start off with, I'd like to do the one connected to the minifigure. Now, I'm not sure if this really counts as a side build. To me, it does. It is missing a cone back here, so I apologize for that. I'm not sure what happened to it, but pretty much it's this jetpack for the snake villain of this net. We actually get two different snake villains. They're pretty much just inverts of each other, so nothing too special, but get onto the minifigures in a second. But it's just this jetpack build. It's got some fans behind here. You know, got these new plane pieces and they move up and down. It's a fine side build. It's connected to one of those newer neck bracket attachment pieces. Let me just remove that for you. You guys can see there, it's one of those, and it's got Technic connectors on this side, and connected to them are actually the dual axle pieces, which are pretty cool. Something I wish that they actually did though was allow these turbines to spin, because in my opinion that would have been a really good like play feature for kids. And yeah, I think that spinning them would have been a really great play feature. They can't do that, and I can't really think of a way off the top of my head which would be easy to do that in a kid set like this, but I feel like they could have managed something. But that's about all I can say for this side build. It's got a nice mixture of this medium azure, not medium azure, sorry, this is more of a teal color. Not exactly sure what it is. On camera it probably looks a little different, same with the drone. Yeah, it definitely does. It's probably just lighting, I apologize for that. But yeah, it's not medium azure, it's this more greenish color. I like that, and I think it blends in really well with the orange and the grey. And that's about all I have with this side build. And to attach it, like any neck bracket, just chuck it onto the neck post and then get the head, and then you just force it back on, and yeah, that's how you attach it. And just to show you guys how this thing works on the minifigure, just to see it moves up, moves down, but again, the turbines do not spin, sadly. But anyways, next build here is a little drone which is meant to be controlled by this other snake villain. And overall, I think that this is a fine drone build. There's nothing really that special about it. There's nothing really that special about any drone build, in my opinion, from NInjago. But this one does come with one of the newer stud shooters, so I guess that's a good way to get it. And in case you guys are unsure how a stud shooter works, the new ones are pretty much just the same mechanism as the old ones, just made a little sturdier. And just like this, you push down on the lever, and it fires, and you lose your stud spreader. But in terms of the colors, they've used the exact same colors as on the jetpack over there, which I think is pretty cool. They also included the switch, and there's nothing too special about the switch, you know, not really functional or anything, but I guess it's nice that it's there. Something I do wish that they did though was just the ability to hold the drone, because this is meant to be controlled by this snake person with the remote. But if they added like a bar or something like that, that would have been really useful just to hold on to the drone, but they didn't. And I guess that's fine, you know, children are probably going to be using this separately. They're going to pretend it's flying around here. Still would have been nice though, and I guess that's really all I can say about this. Let's just use translucent little discs here. I think it would be nicer if it was something else, maybe like an orange or something like that, or maybe even like just gunmetal, because this in my opinion looks a little just bland. Maybe it would have looked nice if they used gunmetal discs on top of these clear discs, but just like this, I think it's a little boring. But anyways, that's about all you have. And to load back in the stud shooter, I did not lose that stud. You just chuck it back in. It doesn't require that much force. I'm only talking about this a lot because this is my first one of these newer stud shooters, so apologize for the long and boring talk. But yeah, that's all for this drone build. Now let's move on to the main dragon. Alright, so discarding Kai first, since it's going to make my reviewing job a lot more difficult. In case you guys didn't know, these EVO dragons are made to be an evolutive sort of build, meaning that they have different stages in which you can upgrade the dragon or downgrade them, depending on how you want to display them or how you want to play with them. And I think it's a really great thing for kids, especially since, you know, if they want Kai to start off with like a smaller dragon, they can do that. But if they want him to have a really battle-ready armored dragon, like this final product here, they can also get that. And I think that's really good, so that they don't have to spend as much money on multiple sets, since they kind of all have that in one set. And that's the main reason I like these EVO builds, but to me some of them just didn't achieve that. But for Kai's one, I think they've definitely done that well. But in order for you guys to fully understand, I'm going to just strip it down to its first form. Alright, so from the main form, to strip it down to its first form, you guys need to remove this centerpiece, just like that. and put that somewhere else. You also need to remove the saddle, which is the actual easiest thing to remove. You guys then plug those back into one another. It's just a technique being connection, as you guys can see here. And I'll go through this more in depth when I upgrade the Dragon again. But this is just downgrading it because I don't think many reviewers actually downgrade it. And so to take apart the wings and, oh, the head's fallen off. But to take apart the wings, all you need to do is remove that Technic pin piece and make sure that it's back inside. Because on the base form, it actually has them displayed on there, which I don't think is great, but get into that a little more later. The head just attaches via this connection here. And to downgrade the arms, you just need to rip off these new SES pieces. Remove the golden ingots on all sides. Remove Master Wu's golden hats and the studs underneath them, which are actually polo studs, funny enough. And do that on both sides. The really annoying thing about this is that sometimes they do come off and sometimes they don't, and most of the time they don't, so you have to kind of do it twice. You also have to remove the SES piece from his tail. That's pretty easy. And you also have to remove this ball joint, which connects to the final tail piece. And with that all removed, this is the base form. Alright, so starting off with the front, the head here is the same one they use throughout all three forms, so I'm probably going to go more in depth here so that I don't need to repeat myself for the later two forms. But pretty much it's that water dragon head mold, which they also use on the jungle dragon. On top of it, they've connected some size and a red slope just to help it blend in, and I honestly really like that. I think that looks really clean, and the size kind of look like dragon horns, which Kai's dragons normally have, which is something I really like. Now moving on to the bottom jaw, as you guys can see, this is actually a new piece made for this dragon specifically, but they later used it this year in the crystallized sets in the form of Cole's Earth Dragon, in the Lloyd's Legendary Dragon, not Legendary Dragon, sorry, Golden Ultra Dragon set. And it's used as the main head and the jaw in that set. And for me, I think this actually really works well as a bottom jaw. Maybe just because the click between the top head and the jaw is just so perfect, and the teeth line up perfectly. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that the protruding jaws are a really nice feature. Now in terms of the way the head and jaw connect, you guys can see that they use these clip pieces, which are useful pieces, but they really just don't look great for dragons in my opinion. I would have much preferred just using droid arms, but to me, if I'm being honest, this is actually much easier for kids to build, and that's, I guess, the whole point of this set. It's meant to be a kid's set, and this is a really good thing that they've added these onto there. In terms of the connection to the actual body, you guys can see it uses one of these pieces and one of these connectors, and then it just connects via a blue Technic pin, so that there's a lot more friction, and just connecting it to the main body there, trying to connect it in, yep. Got it. You guys can see the head moves side to side and up and down, and that's not all that useful. They could have really easily done the ball jointed head. They didn't though, and it's fine, but have to move on. So moving on to the middle, the main base of support is actually a Mario jumper piece, I believe these are called. On the bottom, we actually get two round pieces here. They are identical. And so it actually makes the dragon torso look really, really muscular when it's in its final form. But now it just looks like it's kind of a dad bod. It's got like this protruding stomach, which really isn't a great look. Another thing to note is that the front legs are incredibly tall, and that's because they've used the black ball joint pieces rather than the gray ones, and that just makes it so much longer. And for the final forms, I like it, but in this form, it really isn't that great. Move on to the back legs. They do have some circular jumper pieces used on here, and that's to connect the Wu hats later. They've also used a lot of brown, which I like as well, but for the feet specifically, I think that going with red would have been a much better option. And you guys can see it on the back of the main body, it curves down and it connects to the Technic piece that just kind of goes like that. Pretty basic, but move on to the tail. The front of the tail is the widest part of the whole set, and I'm not sure why they had to do that. I feel like it would have been better if they just left that off and replaced the red plate with an orange one. Just my opinion though, and if you guys check out Sam's Brick Labs video, he actually does that, and I think it looks much better. And then on the second tail piece, you just have some pieces stacked up with another ball joint piece. But overall, the main flaw with this first form is that it's just incredibly tall, and it doesn't need to be this tall. But yeah, that's it for the first form. Move on to the next one. Something else I forgot to mention is that with the first form of the dragon, you also get the first form of EVO Kai. And this one doesn't have the armor. All it has is the hairpiece, and it's got no bottom mask or anything like that. And it's also got his chicken wing for the dragon. And that's all you get for the first form, but you are supposed to later upgrade it for the later forms with the armor, sword, and mask piece. Now for the second Dragon Evo form, you actually only need 4 pieces. So you need 2 of the wing pieces, you need this tail attachment, and you also need the middle body piece. Let's get on to the evolution. Alright, so to evolve this dragon, the first thing you need to do is remove the torso and separate it. And then you need to get that middle torso piece and just attach the Technic pins in, pretty self-explanatory. And then you also want to move on to the wings and just attach them into those Technic pins, those Technic axles, sorry. Need to work on my Technic knowledge. But you also need to attach the mixer ball joint onto the tail and just push that in. And yeah, that's your second form. And overall, this second form is actually my favorite of the bunch. Not because I think it's the coolest looking, but just because it's the one I have the least problems with. The tail works fine. The head is still the same as I mentioned earlier, and you get wings now, which aren't too far forward, and they're just the right amount in my opinion. And you guys can move the wings up and down, since they are just connected via Technic pins. In terms of the tail piece, I don't know if this is necessary or not, but I definitely think it adds a little more, even though it's a little, chunky and clunky. And I think that my favorite part of all of these EVO upgrades is actually just the middle body. I know it looks kind of weird right now, but you guys can just see how much that middle body adds. It adds a really clean transition between the back end and the front end, and it just really nicely combines it. And it makes it look a lot more muscular than it was before. And that stomach is a lot less noticeable now, because now that stomach's become the hips. And I think that's a great upgrade. And overall, the assembly itself just looks really clean with the Nexo Knight shield on top. But yeah, that's about all for the second EVO upgrade. Overall, it is my favorite, just because it's got the wings now. It's also got the muscular middle body. And the colors are always really good on the second one. And yeah, let's move on to the final form. Also, I'm quite sure that the second form of the EVO Dragon is where you get his armor piece. And I'll just show you guys. And it's just made to be in conjunction with the second form of the dragon, just because it's more upgraded, and same with Kai. And moving on to the third stage. Alright, so here are all the pieces needed for the third level of the EVO Dragon. And this is really where LEGO's decorative sort of function kicks in. But with this, you get 3 of the SES pieces, 4 golden ingots, 2 golden Sensei Wu hats with golden poly studs underneath, 2 blade pieces with Technic pins, 1 fire piece connected to a polo stud with a Technic pin, and 2 more wing pieces with spikes on them, and the saddle. Alright, so for the golden SES pieces, 2 of them go on each side of the legs, and then the third one goes on the tail. And the fire piece just connects to the end of that Technic piece, and the wing pieces go on each side. Make sure that the studs are facing upward. The saddle piece goes onto the Mario jumper plate. The golden Wu hats go on each side of the back legs. The golden ingots just kind of go scattered everywhere. There's one over here on the back leg, there's one on the front leg, and in terms of the blade pieces, they connect to these Technic holes here, and just gonna connect them pretty easily in. And with that, we have the third level of the Fire EVO Dragon. And in case you guys are wondering why I said that this was kind of the decorative stage, the main reason is because since 6-year-olds are gonna be playing with this, they're probably gonna stand them up, have Kai somewhere around here, and pretend to kind of attack Kai, something like that, or maybe with villains, something like that. And once you get to this stage of the EVO Dragon, it's just really heavy throughout the middle body. And so it just becomes really difficult to pose this guy in various positions. Now, there aren't that many positions to start off with. It's fairly limiting throughout, but at least you guys could get more at the beginning rather than now, which it's just really heavy, and it's really hard for even just basic poses. Like standing up like this sometimes requires quite a bit of work. Yeah, you guys can just see what I mean there. It was literally just sliding around. But anyways, just talking about the upgrades, you guys can see on each side we have a wing piece with spikes on them. I like how that looks. I know people don't like the gap, and I really don't either, but I still like how they're much bigger, and I definitely like how they actually kind of go in front of the dragon head. I think that's a very unique look, and in terms of flapping, they still work, and so that's great for kids to play. On the sides, you guys can see that the SES pieces make an appearance there, as well as golden ingots. And overall, I'm not too... Oh, jeez. That actually transitioned me perfect into what I was about to say. I was about to say that I'm not really a big fan of these, just because some of these pieces seem to fall off really easily. Like these golden ingots, they don't stay in place at all, since they're just connected by an individual stud. Same on the front ones. And the Sensei Wu hat, as you guys just saw, it literally just pops off when you press on it. And that's normal, but like, still, this is a kid's toy. This is a 6-year-old toy. and that's what Lego's advertising it as, yet it doesn't feel like one. The SES pieces, however, do definitely deserve a special mention just because of how well they stay on. They're connected via 4 studs, which is much better than 1 stud, 1 stud, and 1 stud. And they actually don't fall off during play unless you push hard enough. And that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you guys. You don't need to push hard for this to come off, yet for this one, you do definitely have to push hard. And I think that's how a kid's set should be made. Moving on to the middle body, you guys can see that there's quite a bit of stuff added on. And just adjusting the camera angle. Apologize for the cut there, but my camera actually just died. Not died, but it ran out of storage just because I've been filming too many of these videos for you guys. So a like would definitely be appreciated. But in terms of the changes to the middle body and the front of the body, you guys can see that there's the golden blade pieces and the saddle. Now overall, the saddle is actually my favorite thing of the third transition phase. I think it looks great on the second one alone, let alone the third one. It looks even better. The flag itself is pretty cool as well. It's got a dragon and a ninja in front, obviously meant to represent this set. And yeah, I quite like that. In terms of the blades though, I'm not the biggest fan of these. Mainly just because I like the shaping and how it transitioned the back of it into like this really muscular front. That was what that middle piece did for me. But now that you add the blades on, it just kind of covers that up and it really doesn't look all that good from my perspective. Moving on to the tail though, I do definitely like the addition of the fire, even though it seems to come off a little easier sometimes, since it's only connected into that middle part, and sometimes when kids would play with it, it would probably pop off like that. It's still pretty secure though, so not too many complaints. And the SES piece on the tail, while it works well, I don't think it's that needed, or necessary rather, just because the tail looks bulky enough without it. As you guys can see, that front tail piece specifically just looks bulky enough without it, and just by adding that, you're not really helping it much more. And yeah, I guess that's about all I can say for this final EVO upgrade. But before ending the review on the actual dragon, I'd like to just show you guys some of the poses that I've worked out for this dragon in its final form. So starting off with my favorite pose, I like to call this one the attack pose. And it's actually the one which works out the best as well, just because it's being supported by the ground most of it. And yeah, so moving on to the side here, you guys can just see how the back of it is extremely elevated while the front of it is especially down. And the reason I call this the attack pose is just because it looks like it's about to attack a person. Let's move on to other poses. This is my other favorite pose. I don't really have a name for it, but it just makes the dragon look incredibly proud. That's just because of how tall the legs are. And I've taken advantage of those legs just by making it look taller at the front. And it definitely looks weird from the side, but displaying this guy front on, I think it's a really good pose for people to look at. And yeah. Also got the mouth open. This is one of the poses which I think actually takes advantage of that really well. And that's about all I can say. Actually, something I just want to say about the video in general, these reviews are completely unscripted. And so if I kind of repeat myself in certain areas, that's just because I've forgotten what I said, just because these are completely unscripted, as I mentioned. So if you guys could support that, and if you guys enjoy that, please definitely do subscribe. And part of this unscripted thing is just displaying how I think the dragon would look best, specifically in terms of like builds and all. And so to make the dragon look best, in my opinion, I just removed these blade pieces just because they're a little unnecessary, as I mentioned. Remove this back tail piece, the SES piece on there. Keep the saddle on. Remove these middle, the smaller wings on the inside. They're not smaller, they're just the same size, but removing those and only keeping the ones with the spikes on them. Also, remove the golden ingots on the back legs as well as the front legs and just chuck them onto the sides of the SES pieces. The reason to do this is just because the slope definitely looks better. And yeah, that's how I think the dragon looks best. And I think that it just feels really complete here. It's not too heavy since there's not, you know, too many wings or too many blades or SES pieces on there. And it just, the color balance in my opinion is much better than the third and final form. That one seems a little too overpowered by gold, while this one's a little more balanced. But yeah, this is definitely how I'm going to be slaying the dragon. I've done this for quite a while now, until doing this review. And so yeah, tell me what you guys think. Alright, moving on to the minifigures in this set, we actually get 3. We get the core suit for Kai, we get a Cobra Mechanic, and a Boa Destructor. That took me so long to say, just because of how long those words are. But starting off with Core Kai, you guys have probably seen millions of reviews on this guy by now, just because he's a really common figure for this wave. I think he's second most common next to Lloyd. And it's not that he's a bad minifigure, it's just that his detail is really simple. And I like it this way, which is why in my drawing, which you guys will see soon, I've actually chosen to take inspiration from this design. And getting rid of his back armor piece, you guys can just see how he has that ninja symbol behind there with some more fire surrounding it. And also, he has some tan legs now, which is definitely different to normal Kai suits. And they've done that with most of these minifigures. Not tan, but like they've given it a secondary color. And for Kai here, I definitely think that it works really well. It just blends in so well with the rest of this suit. And that's what I really like about it. In terms of these accessories, we have the armor piece in gunmetal gray, a red katana, and all of the ninjas this season actually get a color match one, except for Nia, which is really cool in my opinion. We get the chicken wing, or turkey, whatever you wish to interpret it as. I normally interpret the darker colors as turkey, and the brighter ones as chicken, so this one is chicken to me. And yeah, that's about all I have to say with Kai. I do really like how they've chosen to use orange as the secondary color, just because I always thought that was a really good Kai color. And also, here's how he looks with the hairpiece. Pretty good. And alternate face print is a lot more aggressive. Now, moving on to the Cobra Mechanic, this is actually my favorite minifigure of the set. These Cobra mechanics are really common, but I just generally like Cobra's, big Cobra Kai fan, but that's not the reason why. But he's got the accessory of the controller for the drone, which I showed you guys earlier. He's got a gunmetal gray torso, which I think is really interesting. He's also got a sand green hip piece, which is really interesting as well. And he's got orange legs, and his headpiece is consisting of gunmetal gray and orange. It's dual molded, which I think is probably the coolest part of the set, second to this from the Boa Destructor. And yeah, that's about all I can say. His printing is pretty detailed, but since he's such a common figure, people don't really look up to him that much, in my opinion anyways. And moving on to the Boa Destructor, sorry for being really aggressive, but he's consisting of gunmetal gray as his main color and orange as his secondary color on the head, but it is the same mold as the other one. Already talked about his wings, and removing his headpiece to get a better look at his back torso print. You guys can see it's gunmetal gray printed, and it's just meant to be this sort of armor representative. And then on the legs, you've got a waistcoat type deal, which is the exact same as the Cobra Mechanic of the set. Really cool. Alright, and just to reattach everything, you guys can see, just put on the neck bracket as I mentioned a million times earlier, and then just chuck on the headpiece. And his accessory is actually a grapple gun, which I think is really interesting since they've actually included a chain, which I really like. And there's one spare in the set, which is really great for kids to roleplay and stuff like that. And let's go on to the final verdict. So Kai's Fire Dragon EVO is definitely a mixed bag for me. I like certain parts of the dragon, specifically that second form, just because it feels so complete and dragon-like. And I don't like the third form, and I don't like the first form either. I really like the minifigure selection here. I think that's really good. And in my opinion, the side builds are weak, but it's still really good they included them. I think that's especially impressive. So well done LEGO in that aspect. I also really like the molds for this set. And yeah, that's about all I can say. So see you guys next time.